Alrighty, g'day guys, welcome to, well, I'm observing a game of LIHL here, but what I thought I'd do is I'd have a bit of a talk about, I guess, a sending guide for Legion TD, because a few people have asked about it, and I'll kind of stalled, or like a calling guide, I guess, rather than sending. And I kind of stalled on it because I wasn't exactly sure how to do it, but I think I think we'll do it this way. So I'll just talk through it during this game, and then we'll put some graphics up in the edits to sort of highlight what I'm sort of trying to say. Anyway, calling in Legion TD. So calling in LTD, there's no preset when you have these units, you do this, blah 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 blah. Everyone has a different idea of the game, but everyone has the same information when they make a call, alright? So for me, LTD, it's about, or calling in LTD, it's about taking the information you have, so you input the information you have, and then you output the optimal call, right? So this game, Moa here is calling for his team. The information he has is he has a good YOLO with a carry roll. Blue has a holder with potential to TOC. Purple is YOLOing with weak units. And teal has a potential carry setup. They have 3-0, 1-0, 1-0, 3-0. Okay? And he knows that on the enemy team, the overall kill speed is going to be what? It's going to be relatively quick. So he knows quick kill speeds, and he knows his lanes, okay? So that's the information he has to make a call with, alright? So what's their call going to be? So the options are King 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? What do you take? Why don't you King 10 here? King 10 is bad for his role, and he has probably the best role. It's good for this role, it's okay for this role, and it'll kill this role. So it's not the end of the world for sure if this guy had a better role, if this guy had the carry role, like if it was blue and teal on the carry rolls, then King 10 makes more sense. Fast game is okay for Lot and Ig. Fast game is bad for Aqua, and he's got the carry role, so doesn't really want a King 10. Level 2, 2 dinos on level 2, generally bad. A lot of the time you give freeholds, you invite a clog as well, which is overall negative for his team, because there's a chance that they clog after seeing 2 dinos, there's a chance they straight 4, King 10, and just force West to overbuild, and it's quite awkward sending 2 dinos on 2. A lot of the time it makes the game very, very hard, because you give the enemy team a lot of information with that. So, my assumption, my guess, is 3 or 4 going. And there's the 3 send. 3 is generally rather safe, because the YOLO lanes, pretty much every YOLO lane, is not pushing between 2 and 3 if there's no send on 2. It's fairly rare at least. And pretty much every YOLO lane pushes after 3 anyway, right? So if you give the YOLO lanes like a freehold on 3, it doesn't really matter because they were probably going to push anyway. You're generally not very likely to just direct the feed into someone else or into like one massive holder, particularly when you don't scout the kill speed of something like Clock on ship on level 1. So that's why 3 is generally quite a safe call, and you'll normally get a scout with 2 Blood Orcs. Is it going to work? Not really. This spawn guy is probably mid versus the Ferb. The Ghoul will leak, so there's a scout. The Aqua looks like he's leaking a little versus the Ferb, or maybe he's mid versus the Ferb. I think he's mid versus the Ferb actually, so he's pretty happy. And then the turret gets kind of wrecked because his build was bad. But, you know, that's relatively successful, right? So now the information, what information do you get? No AoE on left side, AoE on right side, spawn with copter, aqua, and 2 lanes each leaking hard. So you've got 2 lanes that are strong and 2 lanes that are weak. So the spawn lane and the aqua lane are relatively strong, the other lanes are relatively weak. Just pure through virtue of those leaks. So now you have more information to make your next call, right? So, back before Dragon Aspect was a thing, the call would probably be, rather easily, to send on level 5. Could still be the call, but you are risking feeding an aspect. So I would personally stay away from that call. And I suppose that ties into the next step of calling. It's like you have however much information, your opponent also has however much information, right? And they also have the same information or some of the same information that you have. So Moa here on West, he has the information of spawn with spawn with flying and aqua or mid. But the caller on East side also has the information that West team saw spawn with copter and aqua in mid. When do I send versus those units if I close my eyes and think like that they're not going to be smart or play mind games or blah blah blah? When do they send versus those units? Level 5, right? You see spawn, it's bad on 5. Aqua, it's bad on 5. Okay, so there's a fairly reasonable chance that West sends 5. What are we going to do about it, right? That's the next sort of thought process you put into your head. And the question of who's covering 5, it's green. He's pretty overbuilt for sure. So green is overbuilt, yellow is overbuilt, orange is not, and pink is weak on 5, but honestly spawn with copter tends to do okay. So you can tell that they at least had some fear, some level of concern about Ascend. You can see he's actually changed his build to cover 5 more directly with the alpha male. So there was some fear of a level 5 send. I'm assuming that the reason West didn't go for it is partly because their lumber is relatively low, right? Considering they've got 2 lanes that are somewhat overbuilt. And I also imagine that it's partly because they have the information of those units. East has the information of West saw those units. West has the information of East knows we saw those units, right? And so what's the obvious send versus those units? It is level 5. And now, from the kill speed, from West's kill speed, East's kill speed, pardon, on level 5, it's probably quite reasonable to determine that there was some level of overbuild happening, considering there should be at least one very, very weak lane on 5, the no AoE big leak on 3. The AoE big leak on 3 can still be relatively good if it's, you know, turret, elite, archer, etc. But you can kind of deduce from that kill speed that there was some overbuild going on. That being said, we've got 2 holders. So it's going to be Lod and 4 time stealers, and then 3 egg with Ice Troll and Zeus. So with 2 holders, they're probably pretty comfortable sending level 7. Obviously, I don't know what their spell is, they have that information as well. So those guys, West, Moa, he knows that 1 holder maximum on East, as it turns out 0 holders because Pink decided to push up, potentially immolation, not sure. So they know that there's, like, realistically, maximum 1 holder on East, most likely. Fire Overlord being a potential mismatch to that knowledge, but anyway, most likely 1 holder on East. How many holders do we have? 2. Do I trust them? Yeah, I trust them versus anything but a big fucking full send. So, a lot of the time it's pretty safe to send 7, particularly if they have wave or immolation. So it looks like immolation from East, which is why they're sending. And West is going to start sending as well by the looks of it. I would imagine they feel safe enough to send at least till income. I would be surprised if the call is for permit only, but we'll see.
A player's forces are under attack.
A little bit of a medley of sends here, but 4 Ferbs, 5 Hermits and 1 Bloodwalk at the moment. And maybe this is an immolation send. It's a bit of an interesting send, isn't it? Kinda has to be immolation, doesn't it? I think it kind of has to be immolation. Otherwise, surely you can't afford a send. Anyway. So, knowing we have 2 holders, not knowing scouts after level 3, but knowing we have 2 holders who are both acceptable value, I would say they're reasonable lanes. Teal a little bit weak, blue pretty good if he didn't sort of misplace the egg. So overall the holds are acceptable. So that's okay. As you can see, the misplaced egg half a spot further back, you'll generally get much better focus and won't get smart like this. But that's information we don't have when we're making the call to send, right? That our teammate's going to misplace a unit. Still holds well enough because the send was small. So yeah, we've got our 2 overbuild lanes. Both of them end up holding. So we're feeling pretty good about our call. We have Shockwave, we're feeling like extra good about it. And it is indeed immolation on east. That small send they did was very bad. Very bad. Worst thing they could have done. Big full send and break would have been good. No and skip would have been fine into a 10 send where west was weak. So basically, east lacked information, right? For the most part they lacked information. So they weren't able to make the correct call. But they knew LOD with Time Stealer, so they decided to try and break that with a small send. They were unable to do so because he was very overbuilt. Anyway, we see the resend coming in from west. They know Aqua, and they know Spawn. Spawn is bad on 8. Aqua's pretty good. Obviously Aqua's pretty good. He is already 7-5, so he won't do that well. But in general, if the Aqua goes mid against an 8 send, it's normally not a particularly big mid. It tends to break quite quickly in mid. It's an interesting call though. I wouldn't have called 8 myself this game. No, I wouldn't have called 8. So I'm imagining the logic is they're looking for 8 King 15. I'm just looking to get a bit more money in their lanes. That is my guess. Maybe with a small 10 as well. But I'm thinking like 8 King 15 is probably where his head's at. So the information they've got is, okay, we're ahead in heals. We're ahead in value. We're relatively bad on 10. But we can get more ahead in value by sending on level 8, causing a whole lot of leaks. Definitely a whole lot of leaks. And then if we have enough extra value, income, etc., this is also time to upgrade the king. Time for our low push lanes to get some push. Seems relatively safe. I think 8 King 15 is the call here, partly because of the reroll on blue. So Fire Overlord, Dark Mage, Polar. Lets him be very strong on 15. Honestly, you just keep the Iggs unupgraded if you want a full anti-15, and then still has the option of going 2 Tox Elite Archers for level 14 if heals are lost on 10. As it happens, this Sem was very successful. I honestly didn't think it would go as well as it did, but I guess that is why Moa is probably a better caller than I am. It's definitely not an 8 send I would have called, but seems to have worked rather nicely. They probably need that 20 attack to one-shot. Anyway, you're always kinging here if you're West team, because you know you're not particularly strong on 10. You're not horrible on 10, but you're not particularly strong. So you king here, and just, you know, get the king done for 10, get the income now. It's nice and safe. Nice and close. Anyway, so if we're West, we're 2 heals ahead. We can pretty safely assume that we are fatter because we held 7 and they king leaked, and we held 8 and they king leaked. And 2 of their lanes were weak from level 3, so it's pretty safe assumption for West team to make that our lanes are bigger. We have overall more value, more income, more push, probably 2 of the 3. On average, right? At least 2 of the 3. So, what do we need to do now to win this game? They lost 2 heals, which means that 1 mid on 15 for East team, not a big deal. They die anyway. So all we need to do is break 3 of their lanes. How easy is breaking 3 of their lanes? Pretty simple if we don't send anything on 10 or only send small and have nice bank. What's the potential weakness? If we skip 10 and we have that nice bank, you know, we've got good wood, we've skipped 10, how can we, or how can that backfire, right? What can the other team do, knowing that we've skipped 10? And again, he's calling differently, but it would be, what can the other team do, knowing that we've skipped 10, to counteract that? The answer would be, skip 10 with us and force a race earlier than 15. That's overall good for us though, because we get freeholds with our relatively weak level 10. Or they can try and send 10 and then also send 14. So what do we need? In that second scenario that's more likely that they don't want to race 15 against our rolls, what do we probably need? We probably need to keep our heals and potentially have one lane that's strong on 14. So for me, honestly, this send is very risky. I don't agree with it at all, actually. Don't get me wrong, I think it will hurt East, but I think overall it increases the average value in the game, both for West and East, which I think is a negative. I think that's actually a negative for West in this case. When you're ahead, right? So for example, if the total value is 10,000 amongst all the lanes, and 6,000 of it was on East, 4,000 of it was on West, you're however many percent ahead, right? If the total value is 20,000 and you've got 12,000, am I saying that right? I don't know. Anyway, basically the lower value the game, the more these identical differences will be noticeable percentage-wise. So it'll be 6k 4k, 6k West 4k East, into 11k West 9k East, right? West is ahead by a bigger percentage in the first example. So just increasing the overall value in the game is not always a particularly good thing when you're ahead already. It can be, but I would say when you have low levels of dead value, lanes that function well on relatively low income, and a weakness on 10 with 4 heals, I honestly think the safest play here was just to skip 10, because we're very strong with 15, with blue and with multiple heals, and then go into a straight 15 send or a straight 14 send.
A player's force
If you have a look after level 10 where you get full information of those lanes and decide, okay, they're just crap 14. Don't get me wrong, this is by no means a losing call from West. I think they just end up with less lumber than they would. I think they end up with the same number of heals, but they end up with less lumber, and everyone in the game ends up with more value. Yes, West end up with more value, but so does East. They end up with more value in total also. Value is more shared, but I don't think feeding a lane is a particularly big issue for them this game, considering the roles they've seen. So the information of like who's the potential 10 holder for East. It's probably this guy here. He had a couple of Warlocks, Spawner Dragon, and a Hades. Is he mid 15? Maybe, right? It's a big ask. Especially versus Infernal, which you'll have if you skip. So do I care if he gets really fed? Personally, I'd be thinking, I don't really care. Do I care if we send and he still goes mid? Yeah, then that's a problem, or potentially poses a problem. So that's my take on it for this game for the calls. Now it'll most likely transform into a relatively simple 15 game. Orange is confirmed leaker. We're fat enough to be able to mid 15. And pink is also potentially fat enough, so that's what East is banking off. Lucky mids on 15. As for West, blue, teal, and red all can mid 15. I realised that red decided to push 7-6. That is to, I guess, somewhat counteract the fact that the value went up in the game by also making the lumber go up, basically. So obviously as the values on each lane gets higher, bigger and bigger, you need more lumber in order to break said lane, right? I don't know, there's obviously no direct equation, but it's a rather simple relationship. As value increases, send required to break also increases. So after this arena pops, everyone will be blessed with full information of what each lane has. So we'll go from the perspective of Mr. Mower here as to what I want to do, who is deciding to push 7-7. The reason he's decided to push 7-7 is because he knows that there's leaks in this game, meaning they need to do something about 15. Either they need to hold it, or they need to make sure they can win the race, if it is even a race. In order to do that, you see the value in the units on yellow and think, okay, if he rerolls magic, or if he just gets lucky, he can mid with these units and value income. You see pink, you think, okay, he looks pretty strong, he's got some Warlocks, he's got a Hades, we don't know, we know he rerolled at some point, we don't know which reroll these Warlocks are from. So if we think he still has Warlocks, it's pretty scary. He could be mid. Right? He's pretty weak, and he's pretty weak, but with 2 mid, they could survive. If they survive with 2 mid, is the game bad for us? No, but it's the way we lose, right? If they manage 2 mid on 15, that's how we lose. That's what Moa's thinking. So he's gone, what can I do about that? So we can do a couple of things. We can slow down, we can avoid 15. Ways to do this are either by just being fat enough to skip, potentially with doing king. How many ups have we got to do? 15 attack. Can't do regen or they'll scout it, and that is very, very bad. So maybe not. Sending 14 is another way, or sending pre-15. In this case 14 is the only realistic one, just due to the wood being relatively low. Is that going to work? No, yellow is too fat with really good units. So he's always mid. Pink will clear, if not better. can't be sending 14. Okay, so what do we do? In that case, we just increase the lumber that goes into the 15 send. How do we do that? Firstly, we can push. Secondly, we can leak slower. He's definitely gone for the push option this game, but he's not going to be leaking. He obviously still wants to clear his lane on 15, and he will be able to do that with Mr. Overlord, because Mr. Overlord is pretty fucking good. So from the perspective of then East team, if I'm Legion out, I'm thinking, okay, 2 heals behind, lanes are 2 weak lanes and 2 strong lanes, which is a pretty good setup, right? I would rather have 2 weak lanes and 2 strong lanes than 4 lanes that are kind of in the middle of the weak and strong, right? So we need to get our 2 lanes mid in order to have a chance, right? We are not good enough, 16 or 17, to play off a 15 game. So, like an early send attempt, it's not going to happen, right? Won't work. So, we need them to send 15. Which means we got 2 options. We can king and try and bait them into the send and hold it, right? Or we can send 15 with them. Or we can full skip it, which maybe we'll end up doing. I think probably wouldn't be confident in the values versus their send. So I think we probably have to also send 15, use the lumber of our high push line in order to try and break, right? Whether it works or not, in order to try and break and also increase the values on our lanes so that we can get our 2 mid, right? And we require 2 mid in order to survive. It's pretty much how it goes, right? So we're thinking we need 2 mid on 15 first send, and we can't rely on anything else because we're behind. Our options are quite limited, right? Because we die on a lot of levels, right? For example, East is very dead 16. They'd die on 17 even if Yellow is able to mid, which he probably would be able to. But they're dead on 16, they're dead on 17. Okay? Which means that they need West to send 15. West will most likely oblige them, but means they can't king, because if it gets scouted, it's game over, and there's potential king scouts every level here, and there's not that many upgrades to do either. There's just however many regen, and not very many. So we need to either send on 15 with them, or fully skip it. Then what else you're looking at is, okay, if we send 15 and they survive, well, firstly, how likely is it West survives? I'll be thinking, well, Red went 7-7, so he clears, not mid. He's mid. He's mid. Oh, he clears. I think we can say that, like, the top lane clears, maybe mid. So, is it worth trying to break them on 15? And honestly, looking at it, I'm leaning towards no. I think it's not going to happen. Being realistic, it's important to be realistic. You can be wrong, right? But you got to be realistic. I would be thinking, like, are they going to break? Probably not. So what do you do if they're not going to break your send? You can get the lanes that have a chance of holding to send for income. And that's what we're doing. We get the income sends coming in, okay, from the lanes that can hold. So it's pink and yellow. Green will potentially be sending as well. That's sort of a team decision based on how he's feeling about his lane. I would have him skip. No? And what we're going to try and do is get 2 lanes mid. And then what we have is, we might have low lumber on yellow and pink, right? But we'll still have good lumber on orange and green. And that needs to be basically enough lumber to kill West before the
Player's forces are under attack.
income and value, etc. that West gets from full sending here on 15 just makes them too difficult for East to kill, or before West can resend and kill East, who are comparatively weaker due to somewhat a lack of income and having 2 weak lanes. So I think it is the correct call from East. The more confident you are, the more wood you save. You can save about 1,000 wood. It's generally considered the benchmark for a 17 resend. 1,000 wood on 2 lanes, and then more saved on other lanes. So that's exactly the call they've gone for. I think the call is correct. Will it work? Don't know. It'll probably depend a little bit on this man here, Mr. Infernal, right? But just because a call doesn't have like 100% chance of working, or it can fail, it can go wrong, doesn't mean it's incorrect. Because we use the information we've got, and we input information, and we input game knowledge, and we output the call that gives us the best chance of winning. Not just not losing, the best chance of winning. So I like the call from East. There's an Infernal on pink, so you know what? They're probably going to die. But that's okay, because I think the call is correct. And it's from a tough spot as well. So they're playing the game from behind. They found a way where they can realistically win the game. Yeah. But without that second mid, I think they're just going to be dying here. That being said, Green did a very good job clearing his lane, and this is a big mid, so there's some chance it's enough. I think it's not though. Regardless, it was a good call. I agree with the call, and I think it gave them the best chance of actually winning the game, because with a second mid here, they would not die, and obviously if they don't die, they have a very real chance to be able to send 17 or 20. Or I suppose 18, but no one really sends 18. So they had a very real chance to be able to send 17, right? Or 20, and kill West. Imagine what happens if Moa doesn't push that 7-7 and he sends less on 15. Maybe they have that second mid, right? Kind of interesting to see how that ties in. That Yellow realised we need 2 mids and we need to survive 15. Red realised we need to kill them 15 or the game is hard. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. It was definitely like a different take on the observation videos. I'll try and do a bit of editing and or maybe at the end. Actually, rather than edit, I might sort of just make up some quick visual guides to it and pop those in the description, so make sure you have a look for those. Anyway, cheers very much for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, all of that, and I'll catch you in the next one.